Ben, will we see a walk back in restrictions over semiconductors and their access into China?
I think we will, and I think there will be, a move from these kind of broad-based numerical sanctions and tariff figures to something that's more pointed and targeted. And we've seen already those levers being pulled on both sides. Obviously, the U.S. imposing the export restrictions on the H20 chips that could impact up to $4.5 billion of sales of NVIDIA. The Chinese obviously restricting the magnets, which are hitting everything from electric vehicles to smartphones. The Americans retaliating with efforts, to block the LEAP 1C engines that are being used by COMAX jets as China tries to build its own aerospace industry. So there's a lot of, I think, individual sectors or even specific companies that can be sanctioned or named rather than the broad-based sanctions. And so I think if they can kind of carve their way around those and get through some of these very sensitive areas that really acutely pain the respective economies, then we can start to make some progress.
That sensitivity, that fine line, though, Ben, is one that you have walked and talked about a lot. When I think about what the core values alpha ETF family does, particularly the Greater China Growth ETF, you basically say on the website it's accessing China alpha without compromising American national security or American values. How do we get this agreement with China without compromising American national security?
So I think there are specific Chinese companies and specific Chinese verticals that are coming in direct competition with their American counterparts. That we're seeing that on chips, we're seeing that in the aerospace and defense space, we're seeing that in the critical minerals supply chains, we're seeing that in telecommunications. Those are all verticals where there is direct Chinese threat to American superiority when it comes to leadership in those technology verticals and what we would really describe as kind of the industries of the future. There are, of course, plenty of Chinese companies and specific business lines that don't intersect with American interests. For instance, Chinese e-commerce companies that are selling into, developing markets, Chinese, entertainment, communication businesses. And so that line needs to be walked very carefully, and that can be done through these negotiations and through an investment platform that enables you to access the high alpha that China's generating both domestically and through its foreign kind of counterparts, where it is the leading trade partner to over 140 countries around the world. But also it restricts America sending its most prized technological IP towards the Chinese as they try to compete with us in those industries of the future.
What's so interesting, though, is that maybe some of those entertainment and e-commerce companies that you talk of have been embroiled in what's deemed national security threats. We think about what Tencent was painted as in some way, Ben. Is this the art or lack of art around negotiation and diplomacy? Are companies going to get dragged in, rightly or wrongly, that may not have a direct exposure to national security?
China, through its own initiative, has recognized that these large-scale businesses, the Alibabas, the Tencents, the ByteDances, the Meituans of the world, became bloated and had too many business lines under one hood that stretched from innocuous, grocery delivery all the way to, to web. To military applications in the aerospace and defense, maps, geospatial, et cetera. And so even they, I think, are starting to piece apart those businesses and start to require that some of those are divested or spun off and that the kind of core assets are left alone. And I think that will actually aid them as they work to negotiate with the Americans, because it's easier then to sanction those specific verticals rather than the entire company getting caught up in one dragnet. So it's beneficial for antitrust, anti-monopoly efforts domestically in China, as well as for U.S. trade and sanction talks.
What does, therefore, a portfolio with exposure to Chinese names look like in the future for you, Ben? What should be accessed? Which bets should you be making at this time?
Well, I think there will continue to be verticals where the United States and China are not going to be directly competitive. It's very hard for America today to build, for instance, a low-cost handset that competes with the Xiaomis, Oppos, and Vivos of the world. We've seen the likes of Apple pricing themselves significantly outside of those companies at a point where those kind of next billion consumers that are in, say, Africa, Southeast Asia, South Asia, just simply cannot pay. And so there will continue to be verticals where China, through low cost, high-end manufacturing of consumer-facing products will continue to grow in market leadership, but not directly intersect American national security or strategic imperatives. America, for its part, has huge leadership and a head start in the AI space, in obviously the chipset space, historically in aerospace and defense. And so those are verticals that should stay very much within the American camp and whose supply chains need to be reinforced such that there isn't dependence in the future on Chinese magnets or other key inputs to fortify those supply chains.
Ben, will there be any change to global supply chains when it comes to rare earths in the future, though? For now, it is incredibly dependent on China. How quickly can that turn around, should you want to have them accessed here in the United States?
Absolutely, we should. And this is one of the biggest problems that we face and why we needed change and why Donald Trump was elected. The objective of this Trump administration is to tear down a lot of those barriers that were impeding growth of the American industry. And we're seeing a resurgence of American aerospace defense and then its accompanying supply chain. It was a result of the president coming to office. Silicon Valley historically has been almost entirely aligned behind this Trump administration because they see that he's tearing down a lot of those barriers, be it EPA or other forms of barrier, ensuring that there are stimulus and other forms of support, ensuring that procurement is done in an efficient way without the kind of cost plus archaic methods that were used historically. We have a lot of these natural resources within our own borders, but we weren't extracting them because of environmental concerns and other DEI issues that got in the way of that. And so I think that that will be unlocked and must be unlocked to ensure American national security.